I once heard that if you don't know what your purpose is, your number one purpose right now should be to figure that out, to know what your purpose in life is. Because the truth of the matter is that we have all come to this world to bring something to the world that wasn't there before we came. So in today's episode, I'm going to be explaining to you how you can figure out what your purpose is. I always say that you create your reality, right? However, one of the things that I don't think you actually create, that I think you come to this world with, I really believe that, is that you come to this world with a purpose, with a mission. And everything that happens to you in life is either pointing you to that, is taking you closer to that. Even every relationship that you have, every person that you meet is just moving you closer and closer to that, only if you pay attention to the signs, because life is always giving you signs. I would say that the first three things that will happen in your life and that will indicate to you what your purpose is are, number one, the things that you liked to do when you were a child, the games that you like to play. So what type of games did you like playing? In a few moments, we'll get back to this. The second thing is, what types of jobs did you work in? So since you were a teenager and you started working, what kind of jobs were you always attracted to? You know, what type of fields were you attracted to? And then finally, it would be your talents. You know what your talents are. Now, one thing that we have to understand before I move forward with this video is that your purpose sometimes will not be aligned with your job, right? So sometimes you're going to have a job that perhaps has nothing to do with your life's purpose. However, it's a beautiful thing when your job and your purpose do align together, because then you wake up every morning and you feel like you're not even working. You feel like you're just doing what you were meant to do in this world. And that's a beautiful thing to happen. And I actually do believe that we can all make that happen, especially in this day and age. Now, if we were having this conversation, I don't know, in the 70s, or in the 50s or in the 30s, during World War II or World War I, right? The conversation would be different, right? Because at those times, during those times in history, it was more about survival, right, than anything. Now, I do know that some places in the world today are more about survival. I do understand that. But if you're watching this right now, if you're trying to find your purpose, I'd like to think that you're probably at a place where you are somewhere in the world that can allow you to mix your purpose with your career, with your job. And again, I repeat, now more than ever, because we have this beautiful thing called the internet. And with the internet, you can now choose to do jobs, work, start businesses that are not more of the traditional ones, right? That our parents or grandparents were kind of forced to do growing up. Now we kind of can be creative with it. So what I'm going to do today is that I'm going to share with you what are the 7 different, I would say, categories of purposes. You're going to notice as I start sharing these purposes, and I'm going to give you some examples, that the jobs that exist in the world today, the career paths, right? They all fit into one of these 7 categories of purposes. And again, I want you to ask yourself the 3 questions that I first asked you about. What kind of games did you like playing when you were a child? Did you like playing more with dolls? Or maybe you like to play, you know, nurse and doctor? Or maybe you like to play, I don't know, like outside, you know, with the dirt and the insects or things like that. You know, pay attention to that. That's very important. Then also the jobs that you had as a teenager when you started going into the workforce. And then finally, of course, your talent. So without any further ado, let's begin with the first category. The first category of purposes that exist in this world is the purpose of healing. You are a healer. You are someone who, when you were a child, you like playing nurse, you like playing doctor with your brothers and sisters, right? So you liked healing. If your mom was sick, you wanted to make her a nice soup or bring her a cup of warm tea because you enjoyed healing. Then perhaps as you started going into the workforce, you started going more into jobs that had to do with the medical field, right? Now, when it comes to healing, it's not only in the medical field, but we're also talking about spiritual healing. right? So there's a lot of people more and more nowadays that are in the spiritual world of healing, right? So they like to heal. They like to heal the body, mind, and spirit. So think about it. Think about it. Are you more in the healing category? By understanding these categories and then saying, oh, this is me, this is how I am, you're going to be able to find something in that field that then you can turn into a career. Right? And then again, wake up every morning for the rest of your life, not feeling like you're going to work, feeling like you're doing what you're meant to do in this world. The second category of purpose is to protect. So since you were a child, maybe you like to play police, right? With your friends, you wanted to be the police, or maybe you always were very protective of your brothers and sisters, right? You were the one defending them in school. If someone was bullying them, you were the first one to stand up. That was you. Then maybe when you got into the work field as a teenager, you started to be more into the protecting field. Maybe you started working security in nightclubs, things like that. You were more attracted to the protecting side of things. So that would mean that your purpose is to protect. Once again, then you can find something in that category that will go and fulfill this purpose every day for the rest of your life. The next category of purpose is to inspire. So maybe since you were a child, you were very inspiring. Maybe you were the type of child that would go in front of the family and give speeches, and everyone was like, oh, listen to this little girl or this little boy, how interesting what they're saying. Then maybe when you were in elementary or high school, you were always the inspiring one, right? You were always motivating your classmates, and you were always giving inspiring speeches to your friend. And when your girlfriends had fights with their boyfriends, you were the one always telling them, you'll be fine, it's gonna be fine. So you are more in the inspiring category, right? When you were a teenager, you were getting into jobs that had more to do with inspiring, right? So you were one of those guys, in the summer camps, and you were telling the kids how to play games and telling stories and things like that. I think that in this category, very often people who are inspiring are people that have a story to tell. So they're great storytellers, right? And they're people who perhaps have gone through difficult things, so now they become inspiring. The next purpose is to nurture. Now, this purpose has to do with nurturing the body, but also nurturing the earth. So perhaps you want to get into agriculture, or maybe you want to become a chef, or maybe you want to open a restaurant to nurture people, or maybe you want to start a catering company, right? Your purpose is to nurture. And perhaps when you were a child, you liked to prepare cupcakes for your family, right? Or you like to sell lemonade on the side, of the street. You liked to nurture people, right? You like to nurture your friends, your family, your brothers and sisters. That was something that fulfilled you, because that's the thing with a purpose, is that it's something that brings joy to your soul. It brings joy to your soul, and it makes you feel significant and important, but it also adds a contribution. That's the two metrics of a purpose. It's that it brings you significance, and it also is something that contributes to the world, right? The next purpose is to create. Maybe you are more on the creative side, right? So you're someone who likes to create. Maybe you're an artist. Maybe since you were a child, you just love to paint, right? You love to create art. You enjoy that. Or maybe you were someone that was very creative in terms of ideas. Maybe you wanted to be an architect, or you wanted to be an interior designer, or you just wanted to be an artist. So you're more on the creative side. You basically were brought to this world to add beauty to the world, right? To add creativity. So as an adult now, perhaps you can get into fields that have to do with the artistic side of things, where you are allowed to create, right? And to live off of your creativity. The next purpose is to serve. Serve, we can also change it with the word help, right? You're a helper, you're a server. Maybe when you were a child, you were always called mommy's little helper. You always wanted to help. You always wanted to serve. Now, this category has a lot to do with politics, right? You're serving, you're of service, right? It could also be to work in the service field. Maybe you don't need to become a politician. Maybe you can just work in the service field and be absolutely happy doing it, right? Because it brings joy to your soul, as I said. So service, to serve, is another one of the 7 purposes. Let me interrupt this episode for a second, because I have something very, very important to share with you. We have our exclusive masterclass, The Art of Womanhood and the Science of Having It All, coming up real soon. Now, what's very, very exciting about this masterclass is that it's completely free. All you need to do is sign up, leave your name and email address. The link is in the description below this video. It will also appear on the screen. During this free masterclass, which doesn't happen often, it really happens once in a blue moon that I do it live, I will be sharing with you how you can master the art of womanhood and the science of having it all, meaning that you will find the balance between your feminine and masculine. We all have these two energies within us, and I think that especially nowadays, it's very difficult to find that balance. But once you do, once you understand the secrets to becoming really the alchemist of your life, everything changes and you become a magnet to all the things that you desire and all the things that you dream of. So don't forget to go sign up now. Spots are limited, so you don't want to miss it. Now, back to the episode. And then finally, the last purpose that is also, they're all important, right? They're all incredibly important and they're all needed in the world. So the final purpose is to teach, right? So of course, naturally, teachers are part of this category. Coaches are also part of this category. People who teach in any way, shape, or form. Now, of course, when you were a child, maybe you like to play teacher. You know, maybe you like to sit down and sit your brothers and sisters and you're on the board and you're teaching them something. Then maybe when you were a teenager, you worked as a tutor, you know, every summer, helping young kids get their grades up, right? So you are a teacher by nature. I think that once you understand these 7 categories and you ask yourself, where do I locate myself? Like, where am I at? Life will get a lot easier, because there's nothing worse in life than to spend your life living with the wrong purpose, living on the wrong category of purpose. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing worse in life than to just live your life, let's say, serving when you're really meant to inspire. There's nothing worse in life than to spend your life protecting when you're really meant to heal. You know, because you're gonna feel it deep in your soul that you're not doing what you're supposed to do in this world, that you're not where you're supposed to be, that you should be doing something else. And if you feel that inside of you, you need to make some changes, you know? And I think that one thing that's very interesting about this theory that I came up with, I believe it was 2015, 2016, when I wrote the new version of my book, Beyond Beauty, is that as I was analyzing these 7 purposes, I realized that there's one time in life when you do all the 7 purposes at once. And that's why some people believe that that's their purpose in life. It's when you have a child. When you have a child, you're a healer, you're a protector, you're inspiring, you're teaching, you're serving. Of course, you create it, right? But you also create it with the child. You're doing all of these things. And so that's why a lot of people, they say, my purpose in life is my child. You know, that's my purpose. But that's a wrong way to see things, because then eventually your child will grow up, they will leave, and then you're left purposeless, right? Because you haven't figured out what your purpose is. But that's why having a child is so powerful, because you are experiencing the 7 purposes all at once with this little human, you know what I mean? But you need to figure out for yourself which one of these 7 purposes, or at least your top 3. I always say start with the top 3, and then in the top 3 figure out which one is the one, which one it is, and align your life. And if you can, align your work with that, and you'll see, you won't work a day in your life for the rest of your life. So that is what I wanted to share with you today. Let me know in the comment section, which one is your purpose? So what do you think is your purpose in life? I would love to read from you and see all of the different purposes that exist in this world, and what are you doing to align yourself with it? If you like this video, don't forget to like it, to share it with all of your friends, and of course to subscribe for new episodes every single week. That is it for today, and I will see you very soon.